Hey there, my name's Gary Turner, and I'm just going live briefly this morning as I wanted to share a bit of my working out loud as I continue to explore the interconnections and interdependence of everything, really. And one of the things I've been investigating is around finance. Who gets access to it? Where does my finance get invested in terms of my pension, etc. But the real point of this is to center an event that's taking place on Wednesday, the 1st of December. So that's next Wednesday, as I'm recording. And it's all about the West Papua. It's all about liberation and independence for West Papua. Why is this important, and why am I, as a white guy sitting in privileged UK, interested in this? So first of all, I want to acknowledge Possible Futures as one of the groups that are supporting bring this event to life. I'm just going to share with you the ticket option, just in case you feel moved to join. I hope that you will. So I've signed up for next week, and I'm inviting you also to sign up. I think it'll be a very powerful realization for many of us as to true interdependence and interconnectivity, again, of all things. So it's the West Papua Solidarity Gallery soft launch, and it takes place between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. next Wednesday, the 1st of December, 2021. So let me get into what I'm weaving through learning a bit more about the struggles in West Papua for their independence from Indonesia. Again, I'm not a historian, I'm not an expert, I'm a curious explorer and learner, just trying to join the dots more effectively, okay? So let me go to the first thing. So part of the Declaration of Independence, my words, that the West Papuans are offering to Indonesia and the world, why do they seek independence? One of the key things here is around raw material extraction. So bear in mind, I do work within the chemicals industry. It's based heavily on extractive raw materials at the moment. So crude oil, gas, mining, rare earth metals, etc. You can't have everything that we're all surrounded by today. Computers, laptops, cars, mobile phones, etc. They've all got all of these materials in. And that's what this modernity, if you go and look at that term, like this modern world we all live in, we're all trapped within it, but we're all actually complicit within it at the same time. But that's for another conversation. The point here is, so West Papua are seeking their independence, and it says, please stop plundering our raw materials. And some of those big raw materials are metals such as gold. Of course, one of the most important metals of the last 50 years in terms of the gold standard that was introduced, 50 odd years ago in the US as the basis for global trade. So what's important here to note is US's Freeport and Australia's Rio Tinto are two of the companies leading mining exploration within West Papua. Now, why is that a problem? Like, we might sit here, certainly in the global north, in the UK, in Australasia, in America, in Europe, going, that's just capitalism, right? That's just global. That's the globalized world we live in. It's fine. Like, it just happens. But think about it if this was your back garden. Like, you live somewhere, you just want to live off the land, in line with nature systems, in community, and someone comes in and then starts tearing up your garden and starts digging in your back garden for stuff, and then actually they realize it's valuable, and then start exporting what's in your garden to the rest of the world, and you get left with not a lot. How would that feel for you? So I know for me, it'd feel pretty damn bloody awful. So why I wanted to speak to this Freeport and Rio Tinto, I'm going to come on to this and how this all weaves. So the West Papua sort of push for independence and how it connects to my own pension and maybe yours as well. So keep an eye out for Freeport and Rio Tinto. Okay, that's the first part I wanted to make you aware of. So the next thing is, okay, so who are Freeport and Rio Tinto? Who owns them? Like, really? What's the shareholder structure? Who is backing these big mining companies for their expansion overseas in places like West Papua? Okay, So now what I look at is, okay, what is the shareholder structure? Who actually owns, using these financial models, these financial instruments? Freeport McCorran, who is Freeport in. Good morning, Elise. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I'll keep going. So where we're at is, so you're bearing in mind Freeport. Okay, so BlackRock, Vanguard Group, State Street Corporation. Please bear with me with those particular institutional investors. They're the major investors in Freeport McCorran, who are named by the West Papuan people as one of the biggest extractors of raw materials in their community. Okay, that's the point I wanted to note on that. I then go through and get really curious about, okay, right, what are the actual funds that I'm investing in as Gary in my pension that's meant to be for my, my later life, etc. And I was like, so I got really active in the last weeks thanks to my friend Lucy Bramley, and she shared that, do we as individuals, my invitation to you, are we as activists ourselves, are we conscious of where our pension investments are being invested? So what if my pension funds are directly financing raw material extraction in West Papua? Could that be possible? And then I look at this and go, but I'm a good meaning human being, and I want to invest in more sustainable, more regenerative, more humane businesses and practices that help turn our challenges around, right? So then I go to, okay, well, let's go and have a little look at the ethical funds that are available to people like me in the global north with my best intention, wanting to invest more sustainably. What you're now seeing is one of the funds that I am actively invested in is this one. And it's actually quite a new fund because it's an ethical fund on offer by Ajon, which is actually an ex-BlackRock fund. As I go down, you will see Rio Tinto. So Rio Tinto, who are one of the two mining companies in West Papua, are part of an ethical fund. Open question. How does that sit with you? Then I go down also in this ethical fund and I see Shell, I see BHP, another mining company. I see, Shell in there, oil company. Okay, HSBC, who I think my banking's with them. I need to do something with that. These like well known to be funding a lot of the fossil fuel investments, etc. So is it really an ethical fund? I ask myself. So that's a really curious exploration, I think, for all of us. Then I look at some other funds and I'm thinking, this is quite interesting. There seems to be there's a lot of bias towards what we call global north investment houses and regions. So, where are the companies that make up institutional investors that include companies from Africa, companies from Indonesia, companies from Latin America, companies from India? So I was then looking around at this Asia Pacific, excluding Japan. So, covering pretty much that Pacific rim, and which would take in, the likes of Indonesia, Korea, all the way down that belt. And what's really interesting is this Asia Pacific. When you have a look, Australia at the top, Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, India. No, bearing in mind the size of India and also its weight in computing technology, raw materials, etc. 0.03%, almost nothing is invested in India. Okay, it's Asia Pacific, but the point is, look at this. I don't see anything in there around sort of in Indonesia and other Southeast Asian economies. Like, it's very, very heavily dominated around a few very westernized, I would say, Western influenced regions. So I'm just finding this all really, really curious. So that's another place where I'm looking to invest my money. And then I'm sitting here going, okay, so we've got this institutional investor situation where you've got BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street own majority share in a lot of companies, as we already described, including Freeport. And the other thing that I'm really interested in is how else does that fit into the macro picture? So again, I spoke already about the fact that for me to even speak to you all today, I'm using a laptop. I've got headphones using precious rare earth metals, etc. But for that to be the case, that means there's materials being extracted from different parts of the world. And clearly our financial system is set up so that global north companies, US, Europe, Australasia, are the holding companies of assets that actually sit in different parts of the world, mainly the global south. So let's then just have a quick curious look as I look to wrap up. And again, I'm just on a curious wonder at the moment. I'm wondering what you may see in each of this. When you look at computing, so within a computer, you have a central processing unit, a graphics processing unit, a motherboard, RAM, memory, etc. So when I started to look at CPUs, so of course, semiconductors are the number one, the chip is the number one most important part, of course, is the brain very much of our technology. So who are the big semiconductor manufacturers? AMD, Intel, Qualcomm. So I investigated who are the major investors. Oh, Vanguard Group, BlackRock, State Street Partners. What about with Intel? Oh, BlackRock, of which Vanguard Group owns 7.5% of BlackRock. State Street Partners. Oh, Vanguard Group and BlackRock. They're the two largest shareholders in State Street Partners. Okay, what about Qualcomm? BlackRock, Vanguard Group, SSGA, State Street Partners. So my point here is the same three institutional investors own majority share of Freeport, which is extracting raw materials from West Papua. It's also the same companies that basically have a majority share in the internet. Curious, right? So then the last thing I really wanted to share with you today, and again, feel free to add and challenge and build on this. I'm not trying to be right at all. It's just really curious to me. And then I look then at big energy. So, big oil companies, big energy companies. And again, we see it again. ExxonMobil, Vanguard Group, State Street, BlackRock, the three largest institutional investors. Chevron, Vanguard Group, State Street Partners, BlackRock. So chemical raw materials, big oil and energy, computing, same three companies. I'll leave that with you to have a ponder as to how your own investments may impact oppression and extraction in parts of the world far, far away from your shores. That's the challenge to me today as I reflect going into my day. And it's a challenge and invitation for you to get curious about the interconnections and interdependence of everything. This laptop is not just a laptop. Your mobile phone is not just a mobile phone. There is a history of oppression and domination, as hard as it might be to hear, within every single thing that we use and that we purchase. So it's really a question of how much more stuff do we need to keep buying, and how much more conscious can we be together in community and individually to try and turn around these challenges. So back to the final invitation, West Papua, they have an event next Wednesday. I'd love for you to join it. I'll be joining it. Here it is. You can find the soft launch, humantix.com/WPSOLGAL1. You can find the link in the live stream below. You can find the ticket link. And I've just realized that I forgot to put the link in my live, but it's been a funny morning for technology. So I'll give myself permission not to beat myself up on that one. So hope you're well. Thanks again for joining us, Elise. I hope that there's been some value in this for anybody that's been watching this live or watches it back. So important. I'm not judging anybody on this. I'm inviting every one of us to think bigger, connect the dots, and take individual and collective action so that we can really see and sense into those people that we don't hear and see so often, quite often in the global south, in Indonesia, Southeast Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, and in India. And wish you all a safe and enjoy.